but we do know that judges do get to say whether the executive is complying with the law or not. That's been the case for decades, hundreds of years.
Well, I think there's a difference between saying whether you're complying with the law and then you have these individual district court judges setting effectively broad federal policy that is specifically reserved for the President of the United States. I think we do have a constitutional crisis, and it's being caused by these judges. They're not here to tell us. They're not here to tell us how to spend the money. They're not here to set broad federal policy. That is the president's job as elected by the people. These judges are supposed to be settling discrete, specific matters, not policy setting. I think Vance is right. I think Trump has a point. And these judges want nothing more to continue the lawfare against
I don't think anybody's going to be surprised to hear that you think Trump is right.
They're doing this on
However,
then why would you even mention that? You are not surprised, if we're not surprised that he's making a defense for President Trump and J.D. Vance. Why are you even saying that? You're just being a smart aleck. Just close your mouth and talk about the news.
Just on a real important technical point here, one of the main disputes is whether the executive branch can just decide not to spend money that another co-equal branch has said ought to be spent. So it's not just about forcing the federal government to spend money. It's saying Congress said you need to spend this money this way, and the executive branch saying, no, I don't feel like it, and the courts say you have to.
Well, my answer to that simply is, it is the executive branch's job to figure out how to spend money once it is appropriated by Congress. And sometimes they spend money that's not been appropriated, but the correct political control is between the executive and the Congress.
I want to return to that because that is also a major legal question.
Do you really think that J.D. Vance's tweet is only about these district judges?
I think
this is a slippery slope because they're going to move on to what the next ruling is. They're setting the stage so that they can say that the executive branch has control now over the judicial branch. They're setting the stage. And for people who think that President Trump has not planned all of this, he pushes the envelope constantly. There was January 6th. He has a myriad of people out there that would support the executive branch being able to rule over the judicial branch because there have been no repercussions. And when there are not consequences and when there are not repercussions, you get away with it.
I get it. You want individual federal judges who hate Donald Trump.
No, I don't.
To tie him up for 4 years.
No, I don't.
If you want a big policy questions decided, let the Supreme Court do it. But in the interim, the executive has to be allowed to govern.
How do we get to the Supreme Court? Can somebody tell me?
And that's fine, but you can't tie them up until it gets there.
You can't tie them up until it gets there. We get to the Supreme Court by the judges ruling, things going to appeal, and then it goes up.
And in the meantime, what happens? Trump can't act? Trump can't act?
In the meantime, you're supposed to comply with the court's rulings. Am I wrong about that?
Well, you're supposed to comply, but Scott's absolutely right in that the court cannot say you have to spend these dollars today. So as a governor, I dealt with this. We got things challenged in state court and federal court. It's all judge shopped, by the way. Judges don't randomly get these cases. There's a reason that these cases are filed in Boston, the Boston court, or a certain district, Rhode Island, because they know they're going to get a judge that is politically
That's a great
favorable.
bipartisan practice as well.
Yeah. Both sides do it. I mean, I think
how many times that district court and judge one guy in Texas shut down Joe Biden?
But you raised the right point. Should the president, the singular president, should he have to share the presidency with 300 district court judges? No, absolutely not.
But the point, though, you made a really good point that there have been judges that shut down some of President Biden's executive actions, and they understand, the Biden administration understood the checks and balances.
The Supreme Court tried to stop me, but they never will.
But not in the way that Donald Trump is.
Who said that? Joe Biden.
But Scott, he actually didn't ignore it.
He did. They continued to plow forward with student aid.
No, he didn't.
Let me set the record on
he actually got dinged on the student loan debt forgiveness.
From my understanding, Joe Biden didn't. Joe Biden kept trying to fight to get some form of eradicating student loan debt for people and just trying to wipe it clean and get rid of it. He never stopped. He kept at it, and it continued all throughout his 4 years as president. So I don't have no idea what they're talking about. They're just making shit up.
Yeah.
Student loan forgiveness policy.
What did he say out loud?
I thought it was a ridiculous policy. I thought it was unconstitutional. I predicted it would get struck down. It did get struck down, and I applauded. He did not ignore it, though. He went and tried under a different law.
So he ignored it.
You're allowed. No, that's not ignoring it. That's not ignoring it. He's trying to do it. He's trying to do it. But let me just understand.
See what I mean? Look at what he just said. Oh, he didn't defy it. He just went and tried to do it under a new law. These people are insane. They're sick. These are sick people.
Understand where you stand. If a district court judge rules in a way that the president dislikes, should the president listen or should the president defy?
If a district court judge tries to usurp the authority of the chief executive of this country, he should absolutely defy it. There's a difference between broad policy decisions and discrete disputes between parties. That's the difference. If I want a policy decided, I'll take it to the Supreme Court.
But what about checks and balances?
Well, Scott, you're
of a district court judge who elected them.
What I can't get with is you talking in these bizarre, broad generalities.
It's not bizarre.
Every single one of these cases deals with a discrete issue, okay? It deals with funding. It deals with with certain constitutionally or statutorily appointed roles. Every single one of these things is a distinct thing, and they're all being dealt with by different judges. So it's not broad swaths of policy here. When the court says Congress, appropriated this money, you must unfreeze it while we litigate this. Why can't Trump comply with that?
So you're saying that a judge should decide how and when money is spent
a judge is saying,
for years, and not the president of the United States?
Scott, let me explain
You're a governor,
a little bit more. Let me explain it a little bit more slowly. A judge is saying,
you don't have to talk to me like that.
Congress.
I have a position on this, and you have an opinion. We can disagree.
Yeah, but I'm saying you listen to me because you're not.
Yeah, and the left tries to do this. And I'm glad he just pointed it out. You don't have to be disrespectful. Just go ahead and say what you need to say. Don't try to be sly and disrespectful. There's no reason. Just say what you need to say. We see this a lot on the Jubilee YouTube channel, where a conservative will get up there and there'll be one conservative versus 25 radical progressives, and they'll just go in with the insults. Just stop. Just make your point. Because if conservatives were to get into an insult contest with the left, they would run out of there crying and screaming, or they would just start losing their mind, and it'll turn into a meme on the internet, or they'll start assaulting people. So just stop.
Not listening, and you're making claims that are not connected to the facts. The judge is saying,
maybe you are.
Congress appropriated a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
We need to litigate this.
Okay.
While we litigate this, we're going to put a hold on the actions that you took that might be unconstitutional.
So while we litigate, this, I'm a
why
judge and I'm in charge of the executive branch, and you're not. Forget it.
Yeah,
I totally disagree.
You just can't compel the executive branch to spend the dollars. You can't do that. They can't say we're going to start. The judges are going to start writing the checks. They have every right to
Have you heard of the Impoundment Control Act of 1974?
No.
Okay, well, let me play this. Let me play.
By the way, none of your viewers have.
Okay, well, I'm gonna play this clip for you. This is in Congress. Russ Vought, who is the architect of a lot of this, was being questioned in Congress about the Impoundment Control Act, which actually says that the executive branch should spend the money how Congress appropriated it. Here's what he said is going on right now in the federal government.
Do you believe the Impoundment Control Act of 1974 is the law of the land that you must follow?
It is the law of the land. As you know, the president has run on that issue. He believes it's unconstitutional. For 200 years, presidents had the ability to spend less than an appropriation if they could do it for less. And we have seen the extent to which this law has contributed to waste, fraud, and abuse.
So, Ellie, this is the law of the land. They might be wanting to challenge it, but it is the law.
Right. The Impoundment Control Act says essentially the president cannot block money allocated by Congress. To the power of district court judges, and I understand your point, Scott. I understand the frustration people have when a district court judge blocks a broad mandate from the chief executive, the elected chief executive. Ultimately, the big issues go up to the Supreme Court. But I guess I would ask both of you, what if a district court judge had blocked Barack Obama's DACA plan, the Dreamers plan, right? And he said, heck with you, I'm doing it anyway. Would you be okay with that, or would you have a problem with that?
No,
would that be okay?
So again, that's where we're forgetting a key piece of the third branch of government. That's where Congress steps in.
Yes.
Right? You have to remember that a judge can't just say, well, I'm going to arbitrarily block something. They say, I'm blocking it because of this, and Congress can step in and be more specific and more refined if they want to.
Well, how does that work with Congress, who's appropriated funds for all of these other agencies?
So it can't work that way.
And now the executive branch is stepping on Congress.
If Congress appropriates $20 million for a program, do you, as the chief executive, do I have to spend $20 million on that program?
Well, actually, this is why I brought.
Because if I don't, what's the number?
I know that the
impoundment. Do a bit of an investigation into it first.
I know that the Impoundment Control Act thing sounds really wonky, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is that I understand the idea of testing laws. You want to see how far you can go. But the question that you are asking has been answered. by the courts, okay? The reason that the Impoundment Control Act exists is to say that when Congress says we appropriate this money, it should be spent that way. That's their power. They have the power of the
Every
purse.
state in the country, when we pass a balanced budget, and I'll explain what a balanced budget is.
Again,
to everyone
it's
in
a
Washington in a minute.
dispute, but I'm
We don't
saying
spend- this is
that
called the
hasn't
lapse.
been proven
There's
in the
hundreds of millions of
courts.
dollars in New Hampshire that intentionally do not get spent on certain programs.
What
They're
about
supposed to lapse
what
back
about
into
when the
system.
Trump administration says to Congress, you created this agency, we're going to just decide it doesn't exist anymore?
He runs the executive branch. He can decide who works for the executive branch.
Where
He
does
can decide who
where does
doesn't.
this end? So
It doesn't.
Congress creates an agency, the executive says, to heck with it. Congress appropriates money, the executive branch says, to heck with it. Where does this end?
So it ends, you can go back, and I like what they're doing, and they're going to whiteboard these programs out, and they're going to force each of these departments to come back and actually justify their existence, which no one in Washington has done for decades. If you want NIH money to go forward, explain to me why, how, and how it's going to be spent.
All right, so the next
That's all. They're
Democratic
going to
president
force
who
them to the
says
table.
ICE is going to just disappear, I expect that the two of you will say that sounds
I think all of America.
Yeah, so listen, here's the gist. At the end of the day, the left is mad that Trump is balancing the budget and he's getting the finances in order. They just want money to just go out in all these extenuant ways. The left are complete spendthrifts. They just want to spend at everything, throw money away. And the right wants to now start being fiscally responsible for where the spending is going, which is a problem that hasn't been done in a long time for the government. Bravo. Amen to Trump for going out there and trying to balance the budget, and the left has a problem with it, especially these CNN individuals. Scott Jennings on there is sticking it to him, making the logical argument on why we need to do this. And if judges want to get involved and try to put in these mandates, then we'll see what happens. But at the end of the day, we have to balance the budget, and it's going to be done by Trump. Point blank. If you like this video, make sure you like it and subscribe. I'll see you on the next video.